All right, welcome to the introduction episode of the Rhode Island Gun Rights Podcast. I'm Mike, and in this episode, I'm going to go over a bit about what the Rhode Island Gun Rights Project is about to make sure everybody's on the same page and understands what we're trying to do here, what to expect from the podcast moving forward, and some next steps and what we have coming up. But before I get started, there's an important announcement. If you're listening to this before February 8th, and you missed the meeting that was at the Manville Sportsman's Club on, I believe it was January 28th. There's another meeting this Saturday, February 8th at 2 p.m. at the Tiverton Rod and Gun Club. So if you can make that, there's going to be some important stuff discussed there, stuff we're going to hit on future episodes of this podcast, as well as some articles and things that we've got going on there. So it's important, February 8th, 2 p.m. at the Tiverton Rod and Gun Club, especially for those of you in the East Bay area. It's a convenient spot for you to get to, so make sure you do that. With that being said, let's get into this. I think it's probably important to start with a little bit about who I am, right? I kind of came out of nowhere with this project, and some people I know, some people I don't, so I'll give a little bit of background, which will help inform, the way we're moving with this project and the experience I have and how I can help. So I was born and raised in Rhode Island, lifelong firearms enthusiast, also a tech nerd, which is partly why I'm going this route with this project. After high school, I spent 11 years in the Army, in the infantry. I was stationed, deployed across the world: Fort Campbell, Kentucky, Fort Wainwright, Alaska, Fort Benning, Georgia, Korea, Thailand, Egypt, all over the place. So while I was in the Army, I served in line units. I was in an infantry reconnaissance scout and a sniper and a scout platoon, various formal instructor positions, as well as informal instruction. I finished up as operations and planning NCO at the Infantry Training Center. I helped manage resources, instructor evaluation, curriculum development, that type of stuff there. And then I got out. After I got out, I moved to the DC area. I worked as a consultant, mostly doing physical security consultant for the government agencies, and moved into the maritime industry. Did some port security assessments and threat vulnerability assessments, that type of thing. Trained some anti-terrorism training for facility security staff and all that kind of stuff. After that, I left that job. I spent almost 2 years in Iraq as a civilian security contractor, worked with EOD teams, explosives ordnance disposal teams, doing munition clearance work, and I also did some electronic surveillance work towards the end and before I came home. For the past 10 years or so, I've been working in corporate crisis management consulting. Wear many hats with that, but one of my main roles is managing the company's technology stack, both internally facing as well as external facing. Do a lot of website work and IT management and that type of thing. So pretty involved in the technical side of the business on that stuff, as well as other things, but that's, neither here nor there. So I became politically active after returning from Iraq, initially focused on gun rights, mainly in the early 2000s. A lot of the people that I talked to back then aren't even here anymore. They've moved on. They moved different states and whatnot, at least in my, since I've been asking around. But I did later expand that into, I wasn't super involved in that. I just showed up to meetings and some rallies and things like that. But I did later expand into broader activism. I got early in the Tea Party movement. I was at some of the early gatherings at the State House. Big, huge Ron Paul supporter. I am a libertarian philosophically. I am a gun rights absolutist, and I did eventually work at the state and national level on political campaigns, mostly behind the scenes in the management and data analysis and all that type of stuff, so, technical side, websites and all this type of thing. That's kind of where my skill set lies best, in organization, planning, and building infrastructure and technology stacks and that type of thing. So I mentioned all of this, my military background, consulting, political activism, tech, to segue into explaining how this experience supports the Rhode Island Gun Rights Project. So what is Rhode Island gun rights and where the idea came from? So the idea came from after Governor McKee's State of the State address this past month, and the mentioning of the proposed gun ban and putting it into his budget that he submitted. So it got me really angry and motivated to start finding out more information and maybe get back involved, because I think it's a huge problem. So first thing I did, I get online, start looking for information for the different organizations in the state. And I, and if I'm being honest, what I found was kind of a bit disappointing, if not, more so confusing. A lot of the information was scattered. There were various Facebook groups. Some of the websites were either outdated or broken, just fragmented sources. It was really difficult to navigate the footprint of the Rhode Island gun rights community. And I don't think it's a fault. I'm not pointing fingers and placing blame. I think it's a fault of people are busy, and it's hard to run an organization, and tech side of things don't always come easy to people, and it's a difficult task. So something to also keep in mind here before I segue into this is the opposition. When you look at the opposition, they are highly organized. They have a very clean and streamlined public facing presence. And, looking at that and then asking myself, where can I help? How can I help? Just showing up at a rally or a meeting, or I don't want to start another gun rights organization. There's plenty of those in the state. So I asked myself, where can I help? And the answer for me, was to create Rhode Island Gun Rights, which is essentially the concept is it's a central hub for gun rights information in Rhode Island, with a mission to support the advocates and the organizations without replacing them, right? It's to amplify their message, help take some of the weight off their shoulders of trying to, create all this content and try to get their message out, and to provide them with effective tools so they can focus on the critical groundwork. That's really where the rubber meets the road. So they can spend their time at the State House interfacing with, the politicians and the state representatives, senators, government officials, getting people brought into the movement, all that type of stuff, that really the hard work and the day-to-day work, and not have to focus on all that other ancillary stuff that can be distracting from the actual mission. So essentially what the concept of Rhode Island gun rights is to be a force multiplier. So any of my military friends out there or historians understand what a force multiplier is. It's something to increase the effective of other units or people or organizations. And I think it's important here to say what Rhode Island Gun Rights is not. We're not another advocacy group or organization. We're not here to lobby, to testify. We're not spokesmen for the movement. We're here to support those that are. So not to say that those of us involved in this project won't be involved in those. The actual focus of Rhode Island gun rights as it is to support, not to be another, face of the movement, if you will. So that kind of takes us into the next subject, kind of an overview of the website and the resources that we're trying to push out and implement here. We do have a roadmap for the site. If it's at the bottom of the page, if you go to rhodeislandgunrights.com/roadmap, you'll see kind of the roadmap that we're following and how we're rolling out some of these tools. But I'm going to do a quick rundown of what they are. So what's already released, we've already got the website up and running. The focus of the website is to be modern, a simple design, easy navigation, easy display of information, and a place where people can go to quickly get the information that they're looking for. Much of this information will point to other organizations, but it's kind of a rally point, if you will, for people that are interested in getting involved or looking for information. So we do have the news and information section, which is essentially a blog. We'll be posting articles variously categorized in various ways. That's already up and running. We've got several blogs up there already. We did establish our social media presence on X. On X, we use the name at Rhody Gun Rights. Most other places we're able to use at RI Gun Rights. So you can find us there on the social media. So that stuff is pretty much fully up and running. So we're all set there. Now, we do have some stuff that are functioning and available that are under continuous improvement, quote unquote beta stage, if you will, of the website for you software folks out there. And that is the kind of one of the highlights of this project is the community. It's a social community. So it's a platform outside of Facebook and chat apps and all that other stuff, which again, that's still out there. Unfortunately, a lot of that, especially on the social media side of it, for our issue that we're passionate about, is suppressed, right? And I don't think I'm preaching to the choir when I say this, and everybody's aware. Their message, the opposition's message gets out and gets amplified. Our message gets suppressed and pushed into the shadows. So we need a place where we can communicate effectively. And if you want to think about it, it's essentially a modernized discussion forum that's self-hosted and administered by the project. We essentially, quote unquote, own it. There's no outside influence. It's all on our server. Your data stays on our server. Your all that information is there. And when I say modernized forum, it's not like the old school kind of forums that most of us that are a little bit older remember. It's very similar to a Facebook or a situation like that, or a system like that, where you have different groups where you can chat on specific topics. There's a general feed for the entire community. You can make a post. People can then reply to that specific post. So the conversations stay consolidated, and it's not just like, for example, there's a Signal group. There's a stream of consciousness that goes on in the Signal group, but it's very hard to follow different conversations that start and different ideas that pop up. Those apps do have their utility, but I think group discussion and organization is certainly not one of them. But Next thing was the notification system. So initially, right now, we have essentially it's a newsletter, and this is extremely important, right? So this is really one of the foundational aspects of this effort, is a way to push out timely alerts for mobilization efforts and calls to action to get people moving, get people important information as quickly as possible, and push that information to them, as opposed to being reactive, like a more proactive approach as opposed to a reactive approach where people have to find the information. Now, again, I understand that there are various groups that have their different newsletters and those types of things. There is overlap there. We're trying to consolidate those messages as well, so we can push it out to hopefully a larger group of people. I'll get into how that notification system is going to evolve here in a few minutes, but initially established, like I said, this is in beta, is your ability to subscribe to the notifications, and it will be email-based at this point. Of course, there's this podcast that I'm recording right now. This I'm considering is in a beta stage. I'm, getting into the swing of this, so bear with me while I navigate this for now, but this will improve over time as well, and hopefully we can get more people listening. All right, so what's in development? Well, it's not public yet. We're actively working on it behind the scenes, is an organization and business directory. This is an effort to try to consolidate some of the fragmentation so people can see exactly what the organizations are throughout the state in a very sophisticated but clean and presented in a very organized way. So the organization business directory is going to have a couple of aspects to it, two aspects. One is a listing of all Rhode Island gun rights organizations that we can find and people submit, and the ability to go down and get their information, links to their websites, links to their social media, people, how to contact them, all that good stuff. So that's going to be one side of it, if you will. The other side of it is a clubs, business, ranges directory, any group other than say a nonprofit or a PAC or anything like that supports our cause, right? We want to support the businesses and the groups and the clubs that support our cause as well. And I think it's important to have that easily accessible and an easy way to find those different groups. Now, I guess you could kind of consider this like a Yelp for the gun rights community in Rhode Island. I guess that's the best way to describe this. And you will see it's pretty sharp. And once we roll that out, we'll be letting everybody know about it, hopefully in the next week or so. Along with that, we're looking at an events calendar, right? And this events calendar is going to be, again, a consolidated roll-up of everything that we can find or people submit to us going on across the state that's related to the movement. whether it's a fundraiser, a rally, an opportunity to testify, a meeting like we're having in Tiverton in this weekend, all that type of stuff. Not only is it just the events going on, but those events connected to the individual groups that I'm in the directory that I mentioned earlier. It will all be connected together. So if you click on a group and they have an event upcoming in the directory, you're going to see that event in their listing. If you click on the events direct calendar and you see an upcoming event, you'll be able to click on that event and see the group that's hosting it. So, and a map of where it's being located and all that good stuff. So that's in development right now. That's our next priority, literally working on it as we speak. And that will be rolling out. So you should see that here coming up, like I said, within a week or two, depending on how, many technical hurdles we have to jump through. All right, the next item on my list here is the planned features for the site. So these are features that we have on our roadmap that are planned, just haven't started working on them yet. I'm going to go run through these real quick. We'll expand on this in future podcast episodes, but just to give people do some horizon scanning here and see what we got coming up in the future. We're going to have a sophisticated legislation tracker that that tracks proposed laws. And I know there are trackers out there. There's Legiscan. The Rhode Island website has its own tracker. There's, Bill 50, I think. There's a bunch of different tools out there. Open States is another. The problem is you have to sift through, all the stuff to find out the bills specific to us. So we're looking at doing this programmatically, where it automatically, through automation and some programming, that we can extract that information, post it, and keep track of it. In partnership with that, we're looking at a legislator tracker. So the legislators and the people that are behind these bills, either supporting or opposing these bills, will be connected to this and integrated with this as well. It's a way for you to know who supports or opposes gun rights within the state. So there's more features to that. So I don't want to get into the weeds here. We'll roll that out over time. A system to do some surveying, polling, and collect data from both from the community as well as external to the community, so we can get a picture of the landscape for the movement and distribute that data and information we collect with the various organizations within the state. So we can collect information in and information out, right? So not only do we share that information with the community at large, but the specific organizations that need that information to enhance their efforts and focus their resources. I do know some of the organizations within the state already do this. Hopefully we can partner with them so we can consolidate that information as well. Or if they don't want to be doing that and they rather not, and they'd rather focus on other efforts, maybe we can work together on that and do that work for them behind the scenes and get that information out, not only to them, but to other groups that may benefit as well. A knowledge base is in the works. So just kind of a general knowledge base of information regarding gun rights within the state and historic information, as well as ongoing information, something that's searchable, indexable, easy for people to navigate to, things like, how to do, get a concealed carry permit, or how to, all that type of knowledge. So a knowledge base for that. An FAQ section that will be incorporated into that. So if there's common questions that it'll pull data from that database or that knowledge base into those FAQs. And then also this will also function as a way for us to use information on how to use Rhode Island gun rights. So if there's people that are, how do I make a post in the community, all that stuff will be incorporated into there as well in a separate, segmented separately, but it's the same system that will support both. So here's the other important thing, enhancing the notification system. So as I mentioned previously, the notification system is essentially set up to push email out, right? It's an email newsletter system. We want to enhance that system so we can also do SMS text messaging, which has its challenge. So as we know, a lot of email just goes into your junk folder, right? In your spam folder. That's an issue that everybody struggles with. One of the ways to overcome that issue is volume, right? We get as many people as we can subscribe to the newsletter, meaning some of that information that goes into some people's spam folders will still get propagated by those that see it. So volume becomes the issue. So getting as many people to sign up for the notification system as possible is the key to email anyway. As far as SMS, there are also, again, struggles there. There's some FCC regulations that you got to navigate. So that's kind of why this is not being rolled out right away. There's just, some work to be done there to get that all approved and working. Also, push notifications. So the ability to click a button on the website and get push notifications directly to either to your browser on your computer or to your mobile device. There's some tools and things we can do there that are on the map, on the roadmap as well. It kind of leads me into the next longer term future thing is the potential, depending on how successful this project is and whether or not we put resources into it, but the potential to have a mobile application. So Rhode Island Gun Rights mobile app that people can download. They can get push, the latest articles and news, push notifications, community, the community I was mentioned before, which is not a mobile app at this point. It is mobile responsive. So you can use it on your mobile device and it formats in a friendly way. However, it's not an app that is installed on your device. So a mobile application is a future item on the roadmap. And again, this is largely driven by how successful we can be with this project over the next coming months. Now, there's a few items here that I have under consideration. I'll just mention a few. There are many more, but one of the things that I myself have observed at meetings and in some of the discussions I've been reading through is a potential for a crowdfunding platform. Again, a central location where people can kind of like a GoFundMe or Give Send Go that's specific to the community. We're an organization that is struggling to get a donation app or a something like that onto their website, and it can be a challenge. So we're looking at the possibility of a crowdfunding feature of the website. So that's under consideration right now. There's still more research to be done and some figuring out there. Along those lines is a ticket sales integration. So we mentioned the events earlier, which is going forward and will be launched here soon. Under consideration is the ability for a business that has an event listed on a website to sell their tickets for that event through the event system. So that's something to consideration. Very similar to the crowdfunding thing, but just while I'm thinking of it, just reflect back on the directory. Companies and organizations will be able to claim, quote unquote, claim their listing within the directory. So then we're going to list everything we can find regardless, right? But if a company or an organization or business or whatever group wants to claim their listing so they can manage their listing, they can update the logo, they can update the description of the thing, they can respond to comments on that listing. That's a feature that is going to be possible. And which will tie in with the ticket sales integration for the events as well. So if it's all interconnected. Another feature of the community aspect could be the community side of the thing. The website could be e-learning potential. So and when I say e-learning, I'm not talking about firearms training. I'm talking about things like advocacy, how to establish your group, how to do different aspects that organizations and activists and advocates need to understand in their efforts, right? So we're not looking at pushing out firearms training information. That's handled by other groups, and rightfully so. We're looking at to have a resource for people trying to learn how to do better in the community and help improve their efforts. So that's and again, those are just three things. There are other ideas that we have in the back end, aren't really kind of ready for public release yet, but my goal is not to over promise and under deliver. So I'm trying to make it very clear that these are just ideas at this stage. That being said, if you do have ideas, this roadmap, if you go to rigunrights.com/roadmap, you are able to submit your own ideas, and they go into a workflow that we can review and look at them and either determine whether or not that's feasible or something that we can actually do on a practical level, and we can move that into the under consideration column. And while I'm saying that, something that's very important especially about the under consideration and the planned features aspect of the roadmap, you have the ability to vote on these items. And couple ways that helps us, especially on the planned feature side. It helps us prioritize what we focus on next. And then the under considerations side of things, it helps us determine whether or not this is even an idea that we should spend our time trying to implement. So that's, I think, an important thing to consider there. All right. So that's kind of the project in a nutshell. It's very website based, trying to get information consolidated and pushed out, information in, information out. So that's kind of like our focus, maybe kind of like a heartbeat, I guess, pumping blood throughout the movement. So I guess that leads on to let me just talk about the podcast itself for a little bit. I'll just hit on this. I mean, kind of self-explanatory, but the podcast is an important aspect to this. We're trying to use all the things to get information out, right? So we're looking at the website. We'll publish to social media. We'll go through email. We're going to try SMS. We're going to try push notifications. We're going to try to do all the things to get the information out. Podcast is a huge, a medium that we should not, overlook or ignore. And, the focus on it is to enhance the project. So sometimes it's a lot easier to hit record on the audio. I have a pretty decent setup here, do podcasts for other things, but it's easier to hit the record button, speak, describe what we're trying to do, get that message out. It goes to people's podcast feeds. They listen to it and the message is out, as opposed to sitting down, typing up an article, getting the grammar right, formatting right, make it look good, make it easy to read. That takes a lot more time. Not to say that we don't do that as well, but we can get the podcast out quickly and have additional information on an article. And the other aspect is that a lot of people don't even read anymore, right? You can listen to a podcast while you're driving in your car to work. And we'll especially the important ones, we'll try to keep short, to the point, get those out and go from there. So it's a fast and efficient way to get out information. Now, obviously alerts is an aspect of that, but we also want to do some more in-depth commentary or in-depth information and provide reliable updates, some analysis on what's going on what analysis of the landscape, what tools are available for people to use, for people who care about the Second Amendment in Rhode Island. Also highlight leaders in the community, talk to the different players, the leaders of these organizations that we're trying to support, the legislators, the business owners, the activists on the ground, the people who have ideas, all those movers and people who are doing the like I said, the groundwork and have their finger on the pulse of the community. We want to give them a platform to talk and get their message out as well. So I think that'll be an important, but also a pretty fun and an exciting experiment. So what you can expect from the podcast is going to be legislative updates, legal issues in Rhode Island, also the broader national issues that impact us here as gun owners and gun rights advocates within the state. Interviews, like I said, with advocates and experts and community members and that type of thing, and hopefully they can give us some political advice or even push out some political advice on advocacy and how to organize and what we can do. So why does this all matter, right? Like, why does this big thing matter? And it can sum it up pretty succinctly here, I hope. Gun rights in Rhode Island are always under attack. It's a never-ending battle. The opposition will never give up. They will keep pushing. And if we don't keep fighting back, they are going to win. They're already gaining ground. It's time to start pushing back and taking back some of that ground that we've lost. And a key component of that is staying informed. It's not optional. If we want to protect our rights, we've got to stay informed and get involved. I mean, that's the only way this is going to work. And hopefully we can provide a tool that can help us with that. And that's really the goal of this project. So how do you get involved, right? Like, that's, I guess, the next question is, how do you get involved? Of course, if you're listening to this, subscribe to the podcast, right? We're going to try to blast this out on all the popular platforms so it gets syndicated and distributed. So that's a simple one right now. You have it on your app, just make sure you subscribe. Visit the website. So rigunrights.com, visit the website. And while you're there, subscribe to get notifications. It's is super, super important. If you subscribe to get notifications, we can communicate with you without interference from Facebook or X or any of those other platforms that we know for a fact suppress our message. Less so on Twitter or X, I should say, nowadays, but it's still very hard to build a following on X, right? Like, it's still hard. So yes, subscribe to notifications on the website. If I can't stress that enough, join the community. While you're there, just join the community and start posting in the discussions, right? Start either starting discussions, replying to discussions. Let's get that going, right? The more interaction we get there, the more improvements we can make. We can kind of see where things need to be improved. So that's important. Of course, you can follow us on social media. We're there, even though that's not the focus. We're there. So on X, we're at Rody Gun Rights, and pretty much everywhere else at RI Gun Rights is where you can find us. Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Threads, all those other places. I think we are on a Blue Sky account. So. And then lastly, share with others, right? So share with your friends, let your friends know about this, share this podcast, share this, website, share the social media, just share, and get people aware of what's going on. Now, anything else? If you have ideas or you want to contact us for feedback, please give us feedback. Please do. You can email us at podcast@rigunrights.com. That's podcast@rigunrights.com. It is a Proton-based email system. So if you have something sensitive to say and you have a Proton account, your messaging back and forth to us will be encrypted, something that I'm a big advocate for. And if you have any suggestions, for the site or for topics, just let us know and reach out. We'd be happy to hear from you and start that dialogue. So with all that said, hopefully that wasn't too much. I know I'm a fast speaker. It's something I'm working on. I try to slow down you can click slow down on your podcast app to slow my talking down. But hopefully you enjoyed what I talked about here, and hopefully it's informative, and hopefully you get involved and get on our notification list so we can start communicating. And with that, I just want to say, thanks for listening. Episode 1 is coming soon, so we have already got that scheduled. I don't know when we're going to record, but maybe after the meeting. I don't know if we have time to do it before the meeting, but it will be in regards to what's being discussed at that meeting. And it's an initiative that we are involved in and helping with, and we'll be announcing that here very shortly. So that's all I got. Stay informed and get active.